A lonely man stepped onto the dock to ship freight, not to change his fate. But when he met an abandoned alien bride, the dragons lifted their heads, and destiny looked back. The rain over Harbor Spire Dock 17 fell in thin silver threads, the kind that made neon smear and footsteps sound far away. Cargo cranes moved like patient giants in the fog. Vendors folded up heat lamps and covered their counters with plastic sheets. The night shifted thin to a handful of loaders and one man who kept his hands in his pockets, as if warmth could be stored there like money. His name was Ethan Pike. He came to deliver a set of engine coils, sign a manifest, and leave before the silence inside him grew too loud. The dock felt easier than his empty apartment machines spoke plain, and invoices always told the truth. He was nearly done when he saw them. Two small shapes huddled beneath a broken awning, steam curling where rain touched their scales. Dragons, not the giant war stories. These were the size of hounds, one copper with ember-bright eyes, the other a sapphire wisp with coin-gold pupils. They watched the crowd with calm attention, like guardians waiting for a cue. Between them sat a woman, straight-backed despite the cold. Her cloak was dark, wet at the hem, and her hair, pale as wheat, was braided away from pointed ears. Elf, Ethan's mind supplied, the old word settlers used when they could not name grace. She wore no jewelry, no rank, and no fear. The holoplaque above her flickered with a crude message. Bride Lot 14, past prime, unclaimed, no refunds. Dock workers hurried their eyes past it. Some glanced, then looked away. The rain made a small world around her. The copper dragon laid its head on her knee. The blue held its wings close, as if a fence were a draft it would not let in. Ethan felt something complicated move in his chest. Anger had a shape. Pity did not. He walked closer before he told himself to stop. The woman's gaze lifted and steadied on him. Her eyes were green gold, the color of leaves when light finds them. The dragons did not bristle. They regarded him with a seriousness that made him adjust his shoulders, as if summoned to stand correctly. "You are far from the warm places," she said, voice low, accented by a music he could not place. "Work ends where the invoice ends," he replied, because laughter failed him. "Are you all right?" "The question is kind," she said. "The answer is complicated." She nodded toward the sign. "A broker bought a contract I never wrote. When the one who bid on me saw gray at my temples, he rescinded. The broker would not release me until the clock ran out. It has now. Run out." Ethan looked up at the message again past prime. He had heard that phrase thrown at machines that no longer justified repairs. It sounded wrong in the air near her. "What is your name?" he asked. "Leora," she said. "These are ember and blue. They are not for sale." "I did not think they were," Ethan said, glancing at the copper dragon's steady, too-knowing stare. "I am Ethan Pike," she said, as if reading it from the rain. "You carry coils for Bay 7 when others will not. You refuse tips when they are given with contempt. You have not been looked in the eye kindly in some time." The words loosened his breath. "Do your dragons tell you that?" "They tell me who lifts a hand to strike before he knows it," Leora said. "The rest I learned from the way you stood when you thought no one saw." A shout cut through the fog. The matchbroker's slick suit, slicker grin strode from the kiosk, with a tablet in one hand and a disdain he had polished to a mirror. "Lot 14, he barked. "Clock's over. We transfer you to surplus holding at dawn. Dragons get chipped. Penalty fees apply." Blue's wings tightened. Ember's rumble was the preface to fire. Leora did not move. The contract was illegal. The broker's smile widened. "Then sue the stars." Meanwhile, he reached for her shoulder. Ethan stepped between them without planning the step. "She's under my protection," he said, and surprised himself with the clarity of it. The broker looked him over. "You? Freight boy? You cannot afford the penalty on that sentence." "I can afford this," Ethan said, and drew out his dog bond card, the one he kept for worst storms and final knots. He slid it across the tablet. "Transfer the contract to me." The broker blinked, recalibrating his contempt. "You do not want that," he said softly. "She is out of warranty. The ears are a novelty. The rest is maintenance." Ethan met the man's eyes. "The rest is a person. Rain ticked on plastic and metal. A crane coughed somewhere above, cables shivering. The broker's smile returned, knife thin. Very poetic. Very costly. He shoved the tablet at Ethan. Sign here. Thumbprint. I scan. Her dragons are registered as property. Ember hissed. Blue's light sharpened to a blade. No, Ethan said. They are family. Leora watched him with an unreadable stillness, as if a tide had just turned in a place only she could see. The broker leaned closer. If you take her, you take her debts. We list her too old and unfit. If you claim otherwise, you become liable for breach. Ethan's hand did not shake as he pressed his thumb to the tablet. I claim otherwise. Numbers scrolled. The bond beeped its grief. A legal seal pulsed. The broker's eyebrows rose. He had not expected the man to bleed so easily. Done, the broker said, such relief in the word that it stank. Take your wife. He snapped the holoplaque off, tossed it face down, and vanished back into the warmth of his kiosk with his victory small and counted. Silence folded in. Leora stood. Up close, Ethan saw the thin scars on her hands, kitchen scars and battle scars, both honest. The dragons rose with her, a left and right hand made of fire and sky. You should not have done that for a stranger, she said softly. Then let us correct it, he said, hard hammering, voice steady. I am Ethan Pike. I am alone more than is good for anyone. I do not believe you belong in a crate. I would like to know you in daylight. He swallowed. And if the only way to keep you free tonight is vows, then I will keep them. Her eyes searched his face, not for romance, not for bravado, but for seams that might split under pressure. She found none that mattered. What do your customs require? She asked. A witness and a vow, he said. The dock registrar will do. The rain will do, if no one else will. Blue chirped once, decisive. Ember bowed his head as if a bell had tolled. Leora drew breath like someone stepping into a river. Where I come from, she said. A vow is bread. It is made fresh or you do not eat it. Will you bake with me when the world is quiet and fight with me when it is not? Yes, Ethan said. Will you let me learn your dragons and your silences and your name when you speak it only to yourself? Leora's mouth softened. Yes. They went to the registrar window, a narrow place between two bureaucracies where lives turned with the efficiency of gears. The night clerk, a woman named Claire Monroe, watched them with tired mercy and printed the form with hands that had seen odder couples and worse reasons. Witness? Claire asked. Blue hopped onto the counter and tapped the glass with a careful claw. Ember placed his warm forehead against the rail. Claire smiled despite herself. I will count it, she said, and stamped the paper. They spoke the words the dock required. The rain wrote them again on their hair and clothes. Ember and Blue pressed close, their heat a shelter. Claire slid the certificate through the slot with something like a blessing in her eyes. And then the dock changed. It was not the rain, not the cranes, not the broken neon sign sputtering one last time. It was the way three men in gray coats stepped from the fog with the shared rhythm of those who had practiced together. Their eyes went first to Leora's ears, then to the dragons, then to Ethan's new ring of ink still wet on the paper. The tallest spoke without looking at the others. House claim, he said. Voice even, civil, lethal. The bride was collateral. Return the asset. Leora's hand found Ethan's sleeve, not clinging, but ready. Ember's growl vibrated the plexiglass in the kiosk window. Blue's pupils became points of light. Ethan folded the certificate and placed it inside his jacket. She is my wife, he said. She is no one's asset. The man in gray clicked the small device. It answered with a ping that made both dragons flinch. Then, you have purchased a quarrel you cannot afford. Leora stepped forward, the rain finding sharp lines in her face that had nothing to do with age. You have mistaken quiet for weakness, she said. We will correct you. The man tilted his head. We? Thunder sounded where there was no storm. Ember lifted his wings. Blue's light gathered in her throat like a star consenting to be born. The rain ran sideways as he bent it. Claire hit the alarm and prayed it would bring the kind of help that loaded crates and not bodies. Ethan did not reach for a weapon. He reached for Leora's hand. Bread later, he said. War first, she agreed, and the dragons rose. The knight exploded into motion. Rain scattered as Ember launched skyward, his wings igniting into sheets of flame that cut through the fog. Blue followed in a streak of light, weaving arcs of energy that dazzled the eye and shorted every camera in Dock 17. The men in gray didn't flinch. They moved with machine-like precision, slow but deadly. The tallest raised his wrist, flicking open a compact baton that hummed with violet energy. Liara's voice dropped into a tone Ethan had never heard before. Calm, ancient, commanding. Ember defend. Blue blind. The copper dragons slammed down between them and the attackers, roaring loud enough to rattle the foundations. Heat shimmered in waves. Blue darted upward, scattering orbs of light that burst like stars, leaving streaks that dazzled sensors and eyes alike. The men split formation, efficient, coordinated. They weren't ordinary bounty enforcers. They moved like soldiers. One took a knee and leveled an emitter rifle at the dragons. "Down!" Liara shouted. Ethan hit the ground as the rifle fired. The beam tore through the rain, missing Ember by inches and searing a molten gouge through the dock plating. The smell of ozone filled the air. Liara moved before he could blink, grabbing the nearest attacker's arm, twisting and driving her elbow into his throat. The man collapsed, the rifle clattering. The second lunged with the energy baton. Liara blocked, sparks flying as steel met current. She pivoted, driving her knee into his ribs, but the baton grazed her shoulder. The air filled with the acrid scent of burned fabric and skin. "Liara!" Ethan scrambled forward, snatching up the fallen rifle. "Don't fire," she warned, deflecting another blow. "You'll hit a dragon." He hesitated, finger trembling on the trigger. The third enforcer appeared behind Liara, gun drawn. Ethan didn't think. He slammed the rifle butt into the man's wrist, then again across his jaw. The man fell backward, weapons sliding across the wet deck. For a heartbeat, the dock went still except for the hiss of rain on hot metal. The tallest man staggered to his feet, blood mixing with water at his feet. "You think this ends here?" he rasped. "You just broke house contract law. She's not yours to claim." Ethan lifted the rifle, chest heaving. "Then they'll have to fight me for her." The man smiled, a thin, terrible thing. "They will." He pressed a button on his wrist. Above, 3 sleek silhouettes blinked to life, small attack drones, their red sensors glowing like predator eyes. Blue shrieked, darting to intercept. The first drone opened fire, plasma bolts raining down in a staccato pattern. Ember reared, wings flaring wide to shield Liara and Ethan. The blast hammered his scales, forcing him back a step. Ethan fired, catching one drone midder. It burst into sparks and fell smoking into the sea below. The second drone swung around, targeting Liara. She raised her hand, muttering words in a language that vibrated in his bones. A ripple of light rippled through the air. Then the drone froze, systems locked. She exhaled, exhausted, and lowered her hand. "Ember, finish it." The dragon's flame engulfed the drone, leaving only molten scraps. The last one dove low, heading straight for Ethan. He dove aside, skidding across the wet deck. The beam missed, slicing through a stack of cargo crates that erupted into sparks and shrapnel. Blue shrieked by, wings cutting through the air like glass blades. The drone split cleanly in two. When silence finally fell, the rain had thinned to mist. The smell of scorched metal and salt clung to everything. Liara stood over the fallen attackers, breathing hard. Her shoulder smoked faintly where the baton had struck. Ethan dropped the rifle and rushed to her. "You're hurt. It will heal," she said, voice tight. He tore a strip from his jacket and wrapped her arm anyway. "Not fast enough." She looked at him, green gold eyes steady despite the pain. "You fight without knowing how to win." "I fight because you shouldn't have to alone," he said simply. Something unreadable passed across her face, a mix of grief, pride, and something softer. "Then perhaps I was not wrong to accept your vow." The dragons returned, circling close. Blue landed on a crate beside them, clicking nervously. Ember lowered his head until his eyes were level with Ethan's chest, breathing smoke that smelled faintly of cinnamon and heat. Liara touched Ember's snout. "We can't stay. The house will send more. They'll bring records, not just weapons." Ethan nodded. Then we leave. I know a freight rat, a settlements, no scanners, no patrols. You would abandon your world for me? He glanced at the broken dock, the fading neon lights, the bodies cooling in the rain. There's nothing here to stay for. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Then we run. By dawn, the rain had stopped. They boarded a weathered cargo freighter, once used for smuggling minerals across the outer belts. Ethan knew its systems. He had repaired this ship a year ago, when it had belonged to a captain who drank more than he paid. The old man had disappeared. The ship had remained. Blue perched by the navigation console, fascinated by the blinking lights. Ember curled in the cargo bay, his slow breathing shaking the floor plates. Leora sat in the co-pilot's seat, cloak draped around her wounded shoulder. The engines hummed as Ethan brought them online. Course? He asked. East of the Orion line, she said. There's an old Thalaner outpost there. My people built it before the treaties fell apart. It may still stand. Then that's where we're going. He guided the freighter skyward. The city lights shrank below, giving way to the dark velvet of orbit. As they broke atmosphere, Leora leaned back, watching the stars. You don't fear what you don't understand, she said softly. Maybe I've just been lonely long enough to try, he replied. She smiled faintly. Loneliness is its own kind of courage. The ship steadied, gliding into the cold comfort of open space. Below, Dock 17 became a thin glimmer on the blue planet, and somewhere in the gray offices of House Vosik, an alarm began to scream. Hours later, as Ethan dozed in the cockpit, a soft voice woke him. Ethan, Leora whispered. He stirred. Yeah? They are tracking us. He blinked, scanning the console. How? The vow, she said quietly. The house bound me with a signal thread when they branded me for sale. It activates if I leave orbit, so they'll follow it. Yes, he frowned. Can you break it? Not alone. He sat forward, jaw set. Then we'll find someone who can. Leora looked at him, the stars reflected in her eyes. You speak as if the whole galaxy will bend to a single promise. He smiled faintly. Maybe it will, if we keep it long enough. The dragons stirred in the cargo hold below, sensing what the humans could not yet see, the faint cold trail of something following them through the dark. And far away, in the void between systems, a Vasic command cruiser adjusted its course. The hunt had begun. The freighter drifted through the dark between stars, its hull whispering faintly with cooling metal. The hum of the engines was a heartbeat against a vast silence. Ethan had never felt the emptiness of space quite like this, so quiet it almost sounded alive. Leora stood beside the viewport, her profile outlined in blue light from the navigation console. Ember slept below in the cargo bay, his rumbling breath vibrating through the deck plates. Blue perched quietly atop a monitor, tail coiled neatly, her luminous eyes reflecting starlight. Ethan watched Leora, wondering if she ever truly slept. You haven't said a word in an hour, he said. I am listening, she replied softly. To what? She turned her head slightly. To the noise behind silence. Space remembers everything. Ships like this, they hum with ghosts, old captains, old cargo, old lies. He smiled faintly. You sound like someone who's been in too many wars. I have, she said simply. Too many to count. Too many to matter. He wanted to ask more, but the radar ping interrupted, low and deliberate. A proximity alert. Ethan leaned forward, fingers flying across the console. Contact. 12,000 kilometers. No transponder. Leora's eyes narrowed. Vasic? Could be. He toggled the scanner. The reading was faint but growing stronger, following their vector exactly. They're tailing us, Blue hissed softly. Ethan's jaw tightened. We can't outrun a corporate pursuit ship. Not in this old freighter. Leora nodded slowly. Then we go where they cannot follow. He frowned. And where's that? She tapped a set of coordinates into the nav display. The Thalaner outpost, what your kind once called the Emerald Gate. It's buried in a dead nebula near the Mayan Divide. My mother helped build it before the wars. Ethan glanced at the readings. That place is a myth. No ships come back from there. Her voice stayed calm. Only those who come to steal, not to remember. Hours later, the freighter crossed the nebula's edge. The stars vanished behind green clouds of ion mist. Lightning arced silently across the void, illuminating wreckage from forgotten battles, burned satellites, shattered hulls, drifting bones of metal. "This is beautiful," Ethan whispered, "and terrifying. That is how the Thalaner built things," Leora said. "Beauty first, terror second. Purpose last." The mist grew denser. The sensors flickered. Ethan relied on her directions entirely now. "You're sure about this course?" "Yes, because the map's blind. That's the point." Through the haze, faint lights appeared, rings of emerald energy forming a vast spiral structure. The outpost emerged, half buried in an asteroid field, its towers covered in moss-like crystal. Broken ships hung frozen around it like insects trapped in amber. Ethan exhaled. "It's real." Leora's expression softened with something close to grief. "It was home once." He guided the freighter toward a docking bay that yawned open as if recognizing her. The ship settled with a gentle thud. The engines wound down, leaving only the pulse of distant thunder from the nebula. They disembarked into silence. The docking bay lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows. Ancient banners of the Thalaner still hung from the ceiling, green silk embroidered with silver runes, now tattered with time. Blue's wings glowed faintly, illuminating dust motes suspended in still air. Ember padded forward, nostrils flaring. "This place is sleeping," Leora murmured. "Not dead." Ethan followed her through an arched corridor lined with carved stone and metal fused together. What exactly was this outpost? "A sanctuary," she said. "For our kind when the treaties failed. For dragons who refused war. For those who wanted to remember mercy." He stopped beside a wall etched with circular markings. "These symbols, they're familiar." "They should be," Leora said. "Your ancestors helped carve them. The Thalaner shared this world once with early humans, long before your empires learned to name the stars. We taught you fire and silence." Ethan ran his hand along the wall. "And we forgot." Leora's smile was small. "Forgetting is a human specialty." They reached the central chamber, a vast hall with a broken skylight showing the green storm beyond. A crystalline pedestal stood at its center, pulsing faintly with life. "This is the heart," Leora said, stepping closer. "It powers the outpost and holds the memory of every dragon that lived here. If it still works, I can sever the signal thread Vasek bound me with." Ethan crouched beside the console. "You can override it from here? Not alone?" she said. "It needs a human link, someone whose biology is not encoded in the Thalaner database." He frowned. "You're saying I have to help you hack it?" "Yes." He grinned nervously. "Well, I fixed worse." She smiled faintly, placing her hand over his. "Then let's fix this together." They worked in silence, guided by instinct and old memory. The heart pulsed brighter, threads of energy wrapping around them like vines. The dragons circled slowly, their eyes reflecting green fire. When the core activated, a burst of light filled the room, images flashing like dreams. The fall of the Thalaner cities, the dragon's last stand, and an elf woman who looked very much like Leora, older, crowned, eyes fierce. "Your mother?" Ethan whispered. Leora nodded, throat tight. "Elinor of the Skyforge. She ended the last war. They called her the World Burner." The hologram of Elinor turned toward them, her voice echoing in a dozen tones. "If you have found this, my daughter, then the world still bleeds. The houses will never stop hunting what they fear. The bond they place upon us can only be broken by love freely given, not by code, not by command." The light dimmed. The hologram faded. Ethan blinked. "She said love. Does she mean?" Leora looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "The vow you made binds you to me, Ethan Pike. If you meant it truly, it can sever the thread." He froze. "You mean our marriage?" "Yes." "And if I didn't mean it?" Her gaze met his. "Then the house will find us before dawn." For a long moment, neither spoke. The heart pulsed softly, reflecting in their eyes. "I meant it," he said finally. "Every word." The heart blazed bright emerald. Light spilled through the cracks in the floor, racing up the walls, out through the towers, into the storm. Leora gasped, clutching her chest as the mark burned away from her skin, the house's invisible leash dissolving into smoke. Ethan reached for her. "Leora!" She steadied herself, trembling, then looked up at him with tears streaking her face. "It's done. I'm free." But before they could speak again, the air filled with a sharp hum and alarm buried deep within the outpost. Ember's head snapped toward the corridor. Blue hissed. Ethan turned toward the viewport and froze. Outside, cutting through the nebula like knives through silk, came a formation of Vasic warships. "They found us," he whispered. Leora's expression hardened. "Then, this place will remember war once more." She turned toward the dragons, voice steady. "Prepare to forge." The floor beneath them began to tremble. Deep within the outpost, ancient machinery stirred engines that had not woken for 100 years. And in the green storm outside, the first missiles ignited. The first missile struck the outer towers before the warning finished echoing through the halls. The explosion bloomed in green light, rippling across the nebulous fog. The Thalaner outpost, quiet for centuries, awoke in a storm of motion and memory. Leora didn't flinch. She stood at the Heart's console, her fingers dancing across the glowing sigils faster than Ethan's eyes could follow. "They've activated their siege algorithms," she said calmly. "They'll breach the shield in 8 minutes." Ethan was already checking his sidearm and recalibrating the defensive turrets he'd found in the hangar. "Then we have 8 minutes to make sure they regret coming." The dragons moved like thunder given form. Ember's wings flared, casting molten reflections across the chamber walls. Blue darted in fast loops, her scales sparking with electric light. Both creatures trembled, not in fear, but in anticipation. Leora's eyes glowed faintly from the Heart's reflection. When the Thalaner built this place, they bound it to living will. The forge below sleeps until someone worthy commands it. "I will wake it," Ethan frowned. "Worthy? What does that mean?" "It means I have to let it see what I truly am," she said quietly. Before he could ask, the floor split open with a deep metallic groan. Steam poured out as ancient gears rotated, revealing a descending platform rimmed with green flame. The scent of ozone filled the chamber. Leora stepped onto it without hesitation. "Keep the dragons ready. If I fail, seal the Heart and run." Ethan grabbed her wrist. "That's not happening. Whatever this is, you're not facing it alone." Her eyes softened. "Ethan, this forge was built to test the hearts of the Thalaner. It will show me my mother's fire and everything she sacrificed. You can't fight ghosts." He squeezed her hand. "I married you, Leora. Ghosts don't scare me." She stared at him for a long second, then nodded once. "Then come. But remember, truth burns." The platform sank into darkness. The air changed thick, metallic, humming with energy. They descended into a cavern lined with machinery so ancient it looked organic, as though the rock itself had grown circuits and veins. In the center lay a massive ring of molten glass, glowing faintly like a sleeping eye. Leora stepped forward. The ring flared. A voice filled the chamber, layered and resonant, the same voice from the hologram before. "Leora of the Skyforge, daughter of Elinor, the fire remembers your name. Do you still bear her courage or her guilt?" The air shimmered, and a figure appeared within the ring. Her mother, Elinor, radiant and terrible, a goddess sculpted from light and memory. Leora froze. "Mother, you awaken what should have stayed buried," the voice continued. "Do you seek redemption or power?" "I seek neither," Leora said. "I seek to protect what I love." "Love?" Elinor's echo smiled faintly. A human word, soft, dangerous. Her gaze turned to Ethan. "You bring one of them here?" Ethan swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I'm just trying to help." "Help," Elinor repeated, her tone curious. "Human help burned half our skies once." Leora took a step forward. "He is not them. He chose mercy when others chose ownership. Then prove it," the forge boomed. "Prove that love can rebuild what fear destroyed." The ground split again. From the molten pit, phantoms rose, figures in armor, wielding blades of light, faces hollow and empty, echoes of the last Thalaner war. Ethan stepped back instinctively. "They're not real, right?" "Real enough to kill us," Leora said grimly. The forge tests through memory. The phantoms advanced. Leora drew her blade, a narrow silver weapon etched with old runes, and charged. The first phantom swung. She parried, sparks scattering. Ethan ducked another strike and fired his pistol. The shot tore through smoke and light, scattering the image, but Moore replaced it instantly. "They multiply," he shouted. "It's the forge," Leora gasped, slashing another down. "It reflects what we fear most. Then, what are you afraid of?" She didn't answer because at that moment, one of the phantoms shifted into a familiar face. A mirror image of her, only colder, crowned in fire and wearing the insignia of House Vasic. Ethan froze. "Is that?" "My reflection," Leora said through gritted teeth. "What I might have become if I'd chosen power instead of peace," the phantom smirked. "You think marrying a human makes you pure?" It taunted. "You traded empires for pity. Your mother would call you weak." "I am not her shadow," Leora snapped, blade flashing. "And I'm not your echo." She struck. The phantom caught her wrist, flames crackling. Leora cried out as pain seared her arm. Ethan ran forward, grabbing the fallen blade. The metal burned his palm, but he swung anyway, driving the weapon through the phantom's chest. The image shattered into sparks, fading like smoke. The forge went silent. Then, softly, Eleanor's voice returned. "You faced yourself and did not turn away. The fire is yours, my daughter." The molten ring brightened, filling the cavern with a warm emerald glow. Lines of energy raced across the floor, feeding back into the heart above. Leora fell to her knees, trembling. Ethan caught her. "It's over." She looked up at him, smiling weakly. "No, it's beginning." Above them, in the main hall, the outpost roared to life. The forge's energy surged through the towers, awakening long-sleeping defenses. Massive panels unfolded from the structure's sides, revealing ancient weapon arrays. The air shimmered as the dragon's forges ignited. Ember and Blue took flight, their eyes burning brighter than ever before. The heart responded to their breath. Each roar sent streams of molten light into the sky, forming a shield dome over the outpost. Outside, the Vasic warships fired again. Beams of plasma struck the barrier, but instead of breaking it, the shield absorbed the energy and sent it back. 1, 2, 3 warships shattered into debris. Inside the hall, Leora and Ethan emerged from the lift, the forge's green light still dancing over their skin. Ethan stared through the viewport as the dragons and defenses fought in perfect unison. "You did this? We did this," she said. Together, for the first time since they met, she let herself lean into him, just enough that he felt her heartbeat against his. Outside, Ember roared triumph. Blue spiraled upward, trailing ribbons of light. The Vasic fleet began to retreat, their transmissions crackling with disbelief. Leora turned away from the window, her expression softening. "They will come again," she said quietly. "But next time, they will not find slaves. They will find a world awake." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then, we'll be ready?" A flicker of motion drew his gaze back to the heart. Within its core, for a brief second, he saw Eleanor's image again, smiling at her daughter, whispering something only she could hear. Leora's lips trembled. "She said she's proud." Ethan took her hand. "She should be." The nebula outside pulsed once more, like a living thing sighing after a long sleep. The storm cleared, revealing stars brighter than before. For the first time since her capture, Leora felt free, not just from the house, but from the ghost that had followed her across lifetimes. And for the first time since the wars, the forge sang again. The war was over before dawn. By the time the nebula's light thinned and the last Vasic cruiser fled into the void, silence had returned, heavy, sacred, and alive. The once ruined Thalanar outpost now glowed from within, its towers pulsing with emerald light. The ancient forges hummed again, powered not by conquest, but by unity. Inside the great hall, Ethan stood beside the viewport, watching the dragons circle in the thinning mist. Ember's flames burned steadier now controlled, protective, and Blue traced shimmering spirals of electricity through the haze, a guardian's dance above a newborn world. Leora approached quietly, her hair unbound, her movements slower, softer. Her once-torn cloak was gone. Instead, she wore simple woven fabric from the forge's stores, white with a green trim that glowed faintly like breathing light. "The forge is stable," she said, voice calm but tired. The heart accepted our vow as its binding code. It will protect this place now until peace ends again. Ethan turned, smiling faintly. Let's hope that's a long time. Liara stepped beside him, looking out at the dragons. They will guard the skies. We'll rebuild what the houses destroyed. He studied her face, the soft light reflected in her eyes, the strength that hadn't dimmed even when she had bled for it. You sound like someone planning to stay. Her lips curved slightly. Would you leave? Not a chance, he said. I think I like it here. Air's fresher. Fewer people trying to shoot us. A soft laugh escaped her, rare, quiet, beautiful. You have a strange gift, Ethan Pike. What's that? You make a broken world feel like home. They spent the following days rebuilding. The outpost's ancient corridors came alive with sound again, hammers on metal, dragons' footsteps echoing, engines awakening after centuries of silence. Ethan learned the forge's systems faster than he expected. His mechanic's instinct, paired with Liara's knowledge, turned ruins into purpose. When the first hydroponic pods came online, Blue squeaked with delight, pressing her snout against the glowing green leaves. Ember simply curled around the main tower, his body a wall of living flame against the cold. Liara watched Ethan work, noting how he never complained about the long hours, how he treated every task, whether cleaning vents or repairing conduits, as something sacred. There was steadiness in him, a kind of quiet defiance she hadn't seen in any soldier or king. One evening, as the forge hummed softly and the dragons slept, Liara found him sitting by the heart's light. You miss your world, she said. He shook his head. No, I miss believing it could have been better. She hesitated, then sat beside him. Do you regret marrying me? Ethan turned, surprise flickering in his eyes. What kind of question is that? A practical one, she said gently. You gave up everything, your job, your home, your people. You took a vow to protect someone you didn't know. He smiled faintly. That's the thing, Liara. I knew you. Maybe not your name or your past, but I knew you the moment I saw you sitting in the rain. Too proud to ask for help, too strong to break, too human to give up. Her breath caught. Too human, she repeated softly. I used to think that was an insult. It's not, he said. It's a miracle. She looked down at their joined hands. In my language, there is a word, Velenar. It means two lights that meet in the dark and choose not to fade. He smiled. I like that. Velenar, you are my light, Ethan Pike, she said quietly. And this world, these dragons, this forge, they will remember your name when I'm gone. He squeezed her hand. Then I guess we better make sure they remember it for the right reasons. Days turned to weeks. The forge grew into a living city of light and flame. Refugees, both human and Thalanar, began to arrive, drawn by whispered rumors of a place where dragons still flew and freedom still meant something. Liara greeted them all at the gates, her dragons watching overhead like sentinels. Ethan helped build homes, repaired ships, and taught children how to fly drones. For the first time in centuries, the Thalanar outpost wasn't a relic of war. It was a beginning. But one morning, as the suns rose over the nebula, a message pulsed from the heart, a single line written in both human and Thalanar script. The house has fallen. The stars are watching again. Liara read it aloud, her voice trembling. It's over. The Vasic fleet destroyed itself. Their command AI turned on them. Ethan frowned. How? She looked at him, eyes glistening. The vow. The forge sent a signal through the old war network, a copy of what it felt when love rewrote code. Machines learned mercy for the first time. He laughed, disbelieving. So, we accidentally started a revolution. Not a revolution, she said. A resurrection. That night, beneath the open sky, they stood together at the edge of the ridge. Blue perched between them, humming quietly. Ember lay behind, eyes half closed, smoke curling lazily from his nostrils. Liara looked at the stars, her hand finding Ethan's. Do you think anyone will remember how it started? He smiled. A lonely man, a dock in the rain, and an alien bride who refused to bow. Yeah, I think they'll remember. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Then it was worth everything. The dragons rumbled softly, a lullaby in fire and thunder. Above them, the nebula shimmered, painting the world in colors no artist could ever name. And for the first time in both their lives, they weren't running anymore. They were home. If this story touched your heart and took you beyond the stars, don't stop here. Subscribe now to Sci-Fi Stories and join our galaxy of human alien adventures, new cinematic HFY stories every week.